Welcome to Cardone Debates with Dana. It is January 27th, 5 p.m. We have a really awesome guest, and naturally, he's going to be able to speak on a lot of different things with Gary, considering Gary's background in payments. How's it going, Gary?
I'm good. I'm just trying to do something. I'm trying to repost the room so people go to Parker, make sure they follow Parker Lewis. I think this is going to be a good debate. I think I'm excited about this. So there may be blood left in the ring though over this debate.
Well, there already kind of has been, considering all the drama.
I have spent all day in public relations meetings over my massive Bitcoin dump that I have been selling for Mars bars, pizza, and a redhead. And I used Parker Lewis's payment facility to do all of that. And it was an awesome liquidation on Saturday night. That's why prices are down on Bitcoin. Fred Krueger was kind enough to do a psychological analysis, and he said Gary has sold all his Bitcoin. So I'm pretty sure that I bought it on Mars bars, pizzas, and a redhead. So that should be the news for tomorrow in Bitcoin community. Should be very entertaining.
Yeah, I have your post up right now. There's clips of the space going around. Did you see this?
It got lots of views. I mean, I'm getting phone calls. Did you dump, man? So I think what we should all do is I am dumping massive volumes of Bitcoin so the price goes down.
Oh, okay. Is there a word for that, by the way?
Oh, yeah. There's a number. Smart would be awesome. That smart would be a great word for it.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know if there's like a technical word for that.
Yeah. Wicked smart.
Dustin, are you excited about our new guest today? Oh, no, you're muted.
Amateur.
See, I was shoveling food in my face right as we were getting started because I hadn't eaten all day, and then screw it all up. I'm laughing so hard though. Gary, you cheat. Like you have shown us.
I'm the ultimate degen, man.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that you're always saying is like, don't hold your Bitcoin. Don't put your time frame out years. You trade it like fast and hard. You go
when silver rips 70-80% in 2 days, you go chase that bitch, man.
Every time. You sell low and buy high. Like that is the Gary Cardone way. Hodl's for nerds. Nerds, I think. I saw you go off on Naka too. Like, man, you have been in the zone, Gary. Like throw it haymaker. So I hope Parker's ready because, like, tell you, Gary's coming in ready. Like, he's got the Conor McGregor swagger going into this thing. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Hey, in fairness, Bailey did call me. He in fact called me yesterday. I spoke to him this morning, so I did speak to him. He was so anyway. Look, the facts are the facts, dude. You know, and look, when I see something, whether I own it or not, I mean, I just got a tax bill on my house, and I'm like, wow, if it's worth that much, I'm going to sell it. Because I'm most certainly not going to pay the tax on it. I mean, it's just so much. It's a $100,000 increase. So you know, like if I think Bitcoin's not going to push through 100 easy, and it's going to need to test 75, I'm not sure why that's considered to be. Oh wow, no one talks that way. What are you talking about? Any good risk manager should. Hey man. How am I planning my entry to buy another? You know, see, I actually think most of these people haven't bought much Bitcoin recently. That's what I think the real issue is, or envy or something. But I don't know why you would want to throw some toxic urine in the middle of a marketplace. It doesn't need anymore.
Yeah, this is what people are saying about you.
I mean, I'll say this. I empathize with David. I've known David. He's right. Like the conferences have been great. And it's tough whenever, right? Like the macro conditions have made things very tough. This is where like founders, myself included, it's where you gotta like fight through, and like everybody's concerned and panicking, and it's your job to have the bigger vision and be working towards and being able to articulate. Good companies are built in the hard times, though, right? This is where you get lean, you get rid of the waste and the fat if you're going to survive. I think this is like one of those. So I empathize with him, because it's like, this is that period where it's like, man, everything was going great. Now everything's, so I do empathize, but I think there is a messaging issue about being able to articulate exactly what the vision is and where you're going. Because I've had to do that on, people who are holders of Look. I've spent, I can't even tell you how many dozens of hours just reassuring people, like, the partnerships are still in place. We're still building the tech. We're not going to try to rush the tech out before it's ready so that we can appease the short term and all this stuff. It's definitely tough, though. So I do empathize a little bit. But to be honest, that kind of criticism is what has to happen in order to cut the fat, to get lean, and to like get it dialed in if you're going to turn it around. Otherwise, you're going to zero. On the 75K thing, dude, that is so the 200 moving average is right around 60K?
57, I think.
57.5, something like that?
Yeah.
Right. I see tons of legitimate traders who expect who prefer that we go down, we tap that white line and bounce off of there. So like again, if you've been in these, I don't know how long some of these people have been in, to be honest.
Well, I think that's the problem, dude. They're not planning on buying big volumes of more Bitcoin, which is why I'm really glad to have Parker on here. Because to me, his book that he wrote, Suddenly, let me get the name, Gradually, and then Suddenly, it really spoke to me as a commodity guy. I think people sometimes forget the people that are actually, coming into this industry, and they don't even spend any time getting to know what their background is. But as a commodity player, the name in the book is outstanding. Parker Lewis, he's going to show up here next. But I don't think these guys, I think if you looked at some common threads, you may see, those guys have $3,000 Bitcoin, and they haven't bought any $80,000, $75,000, $100,000 Bitcoin. They're not intent. Like, mine is a volume game now. Like, I have a volume that I want to buy by a certain period of time, and preferably under 6 digits. So it allows me to really think, because, for me, I was kind of maybe oversold this industry. The NFTs were all the thing, and everybody's going to make $1 trillion, but you got to get on the bandwagon right now. Bitcoin has offered me a massive amount of opportunities in time if I am ultra patient to accumulate fucking serious power, dude. And that is my strategy. It's not, oh, wow, I got lucky, bought some $3,000 Bitcoin, bought 200 of them, and I'm just sitting on podcast all day. I think that's the common thread. A guy with $3,000 Bitcoin has a very different perspective than a guy like me or my brother or Sailor, who's looking around going, hey, you guys want this to be a fucking great industry, but you're treating it like a clown show. I mean, it's an issue, dude. Did I lose everyone?
No, you got me.
No, we're here.
Parker Lewis, there he is.
Hey, Parker, thanks for joining.
Yeah, excited to join you guys. Looking forward to talk about the logic of spending your Bitcoin. Appreciated Dustin's comment. I'm building a startup on Bitcoin payments, and before that, built a custody business, Unchained, formerly Unchained Capital.
I forget that, Parker. I forget that you built that, dude.
Well, lived through Bitcoin crashing from 8,000 to 4,000 in a single day with the loan book. So building on Bitcoin is not for the faint of heart, but definitely you got to be able to build through a lot of volatility, and prices being down creates focus. Companies are built in bear markets. They have to be built that way to be lean to survive all weather. So currently working on Bitcoin payments at a company called Zaprite. Helping people transition.
How do you spell that?
ZAPRITE.com. Zaprite.com. And then, as Gary mentioned, between my stint at Unchained and now at Zaprite, I wrote a book or turned my prior writing on Bitcoin into a book called Gradually Then Suddenly, where I explained the framework of Bitcoin as money, helping people build a bottoms-up first principles understanding of why Bitcoin's money and why it's going to be the global reserve currency in the future. So excited to be here. Most importantly, excited to win this debate against Gary and have Gary go all in.
Notice how he does the counter to me. You know, he does this. Hey, I'm just going to be Parker Lewis and kind of boring. I'm really happy to wipe Gary off the face of the planet. And Gary comes out with all this little fun shit. There's going to be blood in the ring. So, well, what is the debate? Let's make sure that Dana, let's make sure we get the debate rules right. So Parker understands that he is in my centralized facility. I control everything. And it's awful. No one should be here. We should all go decentralize ourselves immediately and not have this conversation. That will be my last plug for this particular characteristic of Bitcoin that's overinflated on a regular fucking basis. Anyway, could you give us let's define the topic and what the rules are, Dana?
Yes. So you both have backgrounds in payments. It's a very natural discussion debate. However, we frequently discuss if you should sell your Bitcoin or not. Parker is I can let you describe what your position is, Parker, but he's going to be making the case for payments and why they're important in Bitcoin for the industry. Is that right, Parker? Gary,
Yeah.
You're taking the position of never sell your Bitcoin.
I'm not going to go to the never because I think never is a very, very, very long time. But I'm going to take the counter. We try to do this, Parker, every time because our agenda here is not to like make you look stupid. It's actually to help the audience in a serious way, right? So my thing is I think it's ridiculous to spend Bitcoin to buy an automobile or Mars bar or some potato chips. I think it's fucking outrageously dumb. And I think that I have a lot of really good reasons why it's dumb. Now the whole hold it on forever and ever, look at 10 years from now, I might look at Bitcoin and go, hey, it's worked its way through the system. I am in a very different financial position, good or bad, and I'm going to deploy a different strategy. So I don't know about never, but for 10 years, this is one of the greatest wealth building opportunities in the history of mankind. Suddenly, gradually, and then suddenly to Parker's, like we have not even seen the suddenly yet, not even close. And I don't think you go through retail to get to suddenly. And that's going to be my side of the debate. You don't get there the way we're trying to get there. And I think we should let Dustin just come in and give us his framework because he kind of sits in between both those worlds because he's working on a project.
Yeah, so I actually think a good way to frame this is Bitcoin as currency, right? Which is like the importance of using it and making it available through the Lightning network for people to spend their Bitcoin easily on all kinds of things. It's funny because I really am kind of in the middle of this. I think payments is the next great frontier that crypto needs to solve. I think one place I think we'd all agree, Visa and MasterCard, they call themselves credit card schemes. And I think that's very fitting. Like they are literally schemes and they have held a monopoly that has been harmful for decades and need to be broken up. So like the demand, that's if we're not in crypto to fix payments, then I don't know what the hell it is we're doing. So that I think everybody agrees on that, but I always go back to this. One of the ways I've always loved to frame this is I think Doge accidentally stumbled on something by being like trying to make the worst possible coin based on Bitcoin terms.
The political Doge or the Doge, the Elon coin?
The original like Dogecoin. So the guys who launched it as a joke. Like, oh, we're going to have super inflationary what they ended up realizing, though, that by having an inflationary currency, it actually like kept the price down. Because if I'm tipping, if Gary, if I want to tip you, right? Like let's say I'm on the podcast, or I want to give you $15. I don't want to look 5 years later and that $15 would have been, could have bought me a house. And so like that there is room for inflationary, like, and I think they accidentally stumbled on like what their use case was by being the like token that, you don't have to worry that it's going to go up if you share it with somebody else. So like there's an interesting, and I think this will be part of the debate as I try to frame it for you guys. Like, does the fact, like one of the big selling points of Bitcoin is obviously the fixed supply of 21 million. Is that a hindrance to being able to use it as money? Like, is the implicit bias, like the whole number bias, like difficult for people to wrap their head around, like using Satoshis, etc.? I think all of those are very legitimate questions to have about doing what Parker's trying to do. However, I'll say this, if they can find, like, this is also where volume and value comes from long term, which is if all the Bitcoin is just parked in people's savings account, it's hard to figure out like where the increase, like once the speculative phase ends, like where does the interest generate from? So that's, I think talking about it from a payments and currency perspective is probably the best way to have the debate.
So Gary, let me ask you a question, because I'll invalidate from a very logical perspective why being worried about the price of the value of Bitcoin going up is not a reason not to spend your Bitcoin. But what are your primary reasons? Because you made the statement that you should not buy a car with Bitcoin or buy a Mars bar. I might agree, maybe you shouldn't buy a Mars bar, but a car, groceries.
So let's define what you think you should be using Bitcoin for. Now, notice, audience, that he started, then he was smart enough to ask me a question and get me to say, throw my hand out. I, on the other hand, then turned around and said, hey, you brought the Mars bar up. Is there a level? So I'm going to put the question back to Parker because I want Parker to go first. Okay. It's just a little educational tip for the audience. Go ahead, Parker.
All right. So the only reason why I question the Mars bar is because I don't eat candy, but, for my health reasons.
How about a pack of cigarettes?
What's that? Well, I use nicotine, so I'm not going to.
Okay. How about some nicotine patches?
Yeah, sure.
You would spend Bitcoin.
Sure. So
with any retailer.
Yeah. And now let me say this too. I come from a perspective that virtually 100% of my savings are in Bitcoin. So if somebody only has 1% of their savings in Bitcoin and they have 99% of their monetary savings in fiat, yeah, you should probably spend your fiat because you got too much of it. The dilemma here is not a spending Bitcoin dilemma. It's actually a saving in fiat, because then it also becomes really a save versus spend decision. It's not whether you should spend your Bitcoin on a car. It's whether you need the car at all, because the opportunity cost is always Bitcoin. If you had, say, 100,000 of fiat laying around and you have 4 cars, do you need a 5th car to go buy a Tahoe? Well, it doesn't matter if the price of Bitcoin is going to go up, because if you spend the fiat on the car, you could have just bought Bitcoin. So it's really a save versus spend decision. Then if you have a lot of Bitcoin, then you think about, well, do I actually need the car? The example I gave in a post where I said the logic of spending Bitcoin, I saved in Bitcoin and I needed to get my transmission fixed on my car. I would have had to sell Bitcoin to get fiat to pay for it, or if the guy would have just accepted Bitcoin, it would have been cheaper for both of us. So the dilemma is not the fact that Bitcoin is going to go up. Every spend versus save decision is a consequence of owning Bitcoin or not. So that I want to just introduce as an opening salvo, and then and then I can hear Gary's reaction and counter it.
Yeah, sure. So your opening salvo is that I'm not sure what it is really, other than to say that someone with 90% dollars and 10% Bitcoin has too much dollars. And you also then said, hey, look, I'm a 100% Bitcoiner, which means that you're actually forced to use your Bitcoin for purchases. You have no optionality as I do, whether I'm 50-50 or 90-10 or whatever.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that I am always incentivized to maximally be exposed to Bitcoin over time, because I know that fiat over time is losing its value, and I'm not trying to time the market.
Yeah, no, I understand. What we're talking about doing is using a precious asset which is not deeply saturated at any point into the mass ecosystem. And I can pretty much prove that, because if you were to buy those nicotine patches, wherever you were to buy them, and you use a Visa or MasterCard, the cost to the retailer is probably 3.5% at least less than what he's receiving. And your retailer, when I ask you, hey, do you care who the retailer is? No. So you don't even care that the retailer is going to convert it to US dollars immediately or stable coin, and Visa and MasterCard are going to chunk. And why they're going to get a chunk is because you get an insurance policy from the banks that have their nose stuck right up the ass of Visa and MasterCard, which is effectively a highly regulated cartel, regulated to fucking do cartel shit, and abuse small people. Your Bitcoin is never going to offer the chargeback insurance. And this is a huge problem. So why would you, Parker Lewis, a smart guy, buy 1,000 books on Amazon with Bitcoin, which has no recourse rights, when you could buy all of it on MasterCard and fucking file a chargeback 180 plus days later?
So, well, I was specifically invalidating
the real issue for the consumer.
Well, right, but I was invalidating the idea that the dilemma is not the fact that Bitcoin's going up, because it's really a save versus spend.
I didn't say anything about the price of Bitcoin. What I said was that why would you surrender your insurance rights when they're free to you? See, this
they are free to me.
They are free to you, dude. They're free to you relative to Bitcoin.
What's that?
They're free to you relative to Bitcoin. When you spend your money on whatever in Bitcoin terms, you have no recourse.
But now you're talking about a very specific individual transaction. I'm talking about,
but I'm talking about payments, man. I am talking about all the payments on the planet.
Right. Okay. Well, so say I walk in and I buy eggs and beef from my rancher with Bitcoin.
Okay.
I walk out of the store with my eggs and beef.
Cool. Why did you add the rancher, that part? Because I asked you earlier, hey, is it any retailer? I'm thinking about mass numbers of transactions at Walmart and Amazon, and like, we're really saturated the market. We have adoption.
Right. I'm talking about the rationale. So what I was addressing was the rationale, like the root thing that people struggle with, which is the price of Bitcoin is going up. Dustin brought this point up, so I was addressing that if it's going up forever, why ever spend it? So I was simply making the point, and I'm not making the point that, to be clear, Bitcoin payments are not going to go from 0 to 100 overnight. There are certain transactions there are certain transactions that might make sense to spend in fiat. Now, we could go transaction by transaction, but that's not really getting at the root of, does it make sense to ever spend your Bitcoin? And I'm saying that one of the things that primarily hangs people up about it is the future appreciation. And that really isn't a calculus of the future appreciation, because if they're spending their fiat, they could be buying Bitcoin with that fiat. And then if there's a transaction where you do have some protection that a chargeback benefits you from, then maybe you do. But then turn it around. If you're the auto dealer, right, would you ever want to receive Bitcoin as payment? Right? Because the way that I see this going, and the way that we're really structuring our business, is that it's the merchants that want Bitcoin that are going to dictate this shift. Somebody who delivers a very valuable good or service that wants Bitcoin, because if they want Bitcoin and there's somebody on the other side that has Bitcoin, then, and we've had a prior discussion on this, but the person who's receiving it would end up getting 95 cents on the dollar or less in Bitcoin if they had to have the cost of the fiat system externalized onto them in a scenario where there isn't fraud or there's not expected to be fraud. So it's like, hey, part of the dilemma is why would you spend it? I said, hey, the rationale to get over that is it's really a savings versus spend decision, because every time you spend fiat, you could just buy Bitcoin. And then the other side is, on the other side of transaction, it's like, is it rational for somebody, once they've understood that Bitcoin's the best form of money that exists in the world?
Let's address one or two of these. Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, you're saying that merchants will really drive the adoption.
Yes.
Okay, so what you need to do is get rid of your entire board immediately and hire me, because that's not the way this happens. It took 52 years for Visa and MasterCard to get 7 credit cards in everybody's back pocket, dude. 52 years. This is the most highly organized RICO organization on planet Earth. They pulled the rug out from Putin on a phone call. All your credit cards are no longer fucking usable, okay? Those little stem chips that are sitting in everybody's credit card, it's a location device. I mean, you've been tracked, traced. I've been in MasterCard's offices, and they know down to the fucking address who's spending what the average ticket is. Like when I came here, y'all said, no, merchants won't adopt this because of volatility. And there's an easy way to, no, the industry did. Now we're saying it's about spend, but I think it's about a lack of technology adoption. You've made it so difficult. And by the way, if I had a super little app, and maybe yours is the app, okay? If I had a super app, I still maintain, we have to be careful in this debate, I still maintain this is stupidity to ever spend money with a retailer that doesn't give me a monster discount to trade with him with Bitcoin, because I have no insurance and clawback rights. That is a huge deal. When Visa and MasterCard are arguing with the regulators whether they're going to have, does anyone know how long it takes a credit card payment to settle? Does anybody want to take a guess what the true settlement, which is, by the way, one of the horrible marketing products that came out of the whole ecosphere of Bitcoin, which is we're going to adopt the world, and they don't even know how many transactions occur every minute, and they're calling them transactions, and Bitcoin's a settlement system. Okay?
Is Lightning not how do you think about Lightning then?
Well, let's not go to Lightning because they're just an intermediary, but they're a Visa MasterCard. I mean, sorry, but they're facilitating something Bitcoin can't do, which is my point. You remember the first joke we made? Hey, welcome to my centralized location. In order to get distribution, it does not happen through the merchants. It happens through the consumers, dude. The consumer has to want to buy the product, and they have to want to use that tool, that currency. And by the way, they need to be able to understand it, or it's so simple they don't even think about it, which is what the dollars and pennies and nickels are. All they have to do is count.
Yeah, I'm just telling you that
Bitcoin's biggest problem for that adoption is we don't have sats that are worth a penny. Because human beings can understand one.
Yeah, and I can just tell you from my experience with our business that I don't have the dilemma as a consumer of spending my Bitcoin if a merchant doesn't turn it on and give me the ability to spend. And I think that it's a false dilemma, but say there is a dilemma for the consumer spending their Bitcoin because the price is going up, it's the reverse case for the merchant. The merchant wants it. And if the merchant values Bitcoin,
let's be clear though, okay? You're saying that you're using your Bitcoin and you're using your dollars to buy something retail or wholesale, and they're exchanging at the same US dollar price.
I'm saying, well, on our platform, we give the ability for merchants to charge a premium if they're receiving fiat, or to charge or to offer a discount if somebody pays in Bitcoin, so that the consumer has the choice to know what the economic trade-off is to the merchant. The merchant has an ability to communicate that they actually want the Bitcoin by either saying, if you pay me in fiat, it's 4% more. If you pay me in Bitcoin, it's 1% less now, or 4% less. Now, what we see to be more effective is the merchant actually charging more for fiat, because it's a counter logical thing to say, oh, you're going to give me the better money and it's actually going to cost less. And it's like, no, if you're going to give me the worse money,
that is the way to pitch it.
It's going to cost more.
I think it might be legally the right way too, because you have to dance on payments. You have to dance with Visa, MasterCard surcharging, and they've made it illegal to do some of this stuff. Anyway, just want to say,
and that's why we do it on the currency level rather than on the method of payment.
Right. So in the audience, when I said, hey, how long does it take? Visa, MasterCard is a settlement system. US dollars. I was at a conference the other day. Guy passes me $1. He's ripping them up, showing the audience how unvaluable they are. He leaves them all on the floor. I'm picking them up, man. I'm like, wow, all these rich people, they don't even pick up dollars anymore. I pick one up, and where was I going with this thought? The point I was trying to make to him was we were 3 feet between each other, and I said, hey, dude, you understand that what you just did was you just showed me the power of the US dollar. You could not do that with Bitcoin. You just passed me $1 and it took a microsecond. I can't do that with Bitcoin. I have to use electronics. Physical proximity and the US dollar is awesome. It is, man. It is awesome, okay? And it has no refund rights, no chargeback right. It's literally down to who's going to fight for it. Then you move to Visa, MasterCard, which are trillions in payments. If you don't access that market, you will never do the Jeff Booth theory, which is, hey, if we don't go retail, we don't really make it work. Well, you're going to have to fight the chargebacks and the refund rights. And for the consumer, to think that the merchant is going to drive this, the consumer will drive this. The moment you tell him he can't refund, the moment you tell him he can't refund, he's going to look at his options and go, dude, I can file 656 million chargebacks are filed every year. I know chargeback companies that are actually some of the biggest customers are exchanges for crypto players. So this most certainly is not just going to, Bitcoin has no recourse, and retail wants recourse. They want the lemon laws. They want to be able to refund. How do you live in these two universes? Because I think that's really
I don't know. I view that as a bit of a false dilemma, because on the other side of that, you have merchants that are honestly doing business that are being penalized because the incidences of friendly fraud it's the largest growing segment of fraud. People who actually go through and make a payment, and it was them, and then they call up and say, it wasn't me, give me my money back. But the merchant is out there good for service. And so the merchant, I've talked with merchants who suffer from this, who have like electronics stores say somebody comes in, buys a piece of electronics, and then charges back, but it was actually them. Well, it destroys their business. And so there's every motivation for the merchant to be able to turn on. And one of the challenges about this really is that the platforms, whether it's an e-commerce platform or somebody that's enabling payments for somebody, if you can't fit into the merchant's workflow, that's actually what introduces the friction that makes it difficult for them to turn on. But in this chicken versus egg dilemma, it's like when we're trying to get our platform into something like Shopify will say, well, how many business owners actually want this? And if you don't have the merchants there, then you don't have the distribution turning on. And they actually, like, the way this doesn't go from 0 to 100 overnight, you need people who have first understood why Bitcoin stores value, that then run businesses to say, hey, I actually understand why this is in my incentive to accept this for the very reasons why some consumer might not want it. For that honest business owner that's delivering a valuable good or service to say, hey, pay me in this form of money, and it'll actually be less to you because you can't just call your bank and have money taken out of my bank account that I actually delivered you a good or service on. And that cost is borne by all of us. All of us pay the cost of people basically defrauding business owners. And so we have to get a critical mass of business owners that want to accept it and the tools that actually work for them, to then have consumers that are paying it, for then the Shopifys of the world or the the Stripes of the world, like Square's one that's just legged in. They've seen enough demand from their business owners to turn it on. And then once a business is turned on, then the consumer, and only then is the consumer in a position to spend the Bitcoin. The merchant is actually the one in control of this because they decide what form of money they're willing to accept. And we have to go literally like, first people through the door. And once you unlock thousands of merchants, then you open the door for tens of thousands or millions. And so that's what we're seeing playing out in real time. We were, fighting this battle, 3-4 years ago, people before our time, and now boom, Square's there. And people say, hey, is Square bad for your business? It's like, no, it's phenomenal because now everybody else who runs a payments platform sees a first mover like Square that has the scale, and they'll need to integrate solutions. Otherwise, Square will outcompete them because they're offering a better service to their merchants. And so it's not going to be something that I think we just get Visa, MasterCard to adopt. They have to see that there's real demand there on both sides. It's a two-sided market. And really the incentive is driven because it is the better money by the people who want to accept it. And, another way I think about it at a more high level is, and again, I don't expect everybody to share this view of mine. I think we're in this path. Jack Dorsey put out a tweet in 2021 where he said hyperinflation is happening and it's going to change everything. That I the dollar in my mind is hyperinflating, and that doesn't mean that it's immediately going to be 20% inflation every month, but that's where we're heading. And when I think about spending my Bitcoin beyond the side of like most of my savings are in Bitcoin, is I want the grocer down the street to be in business, because I need him delivering me those goods and services. And I know that if he only is accepting fiat, that every unit of value he's delivering from the moment that he receives it to then when he can convert his working capital back into more goods and services, he's just getting destroyed. And he's not going to be there to deliver me the goods and services if he doesn't figure out a way to get off the fiat hamster wheel. Because the fiat hamster wheel isn't just a hamster wheel, it's basically drives businesses into the ground. So there's also a more broad thing where it's like, hey, if you're a business owner and you figured this out, it's in your interest 100% to make it available to consumers. Then if you're a consumer that values that business and you want that business to be around, if you choose to spend in fiat and the merchant wants Bitcoin, you're just making a decision to externalize the cost of fiat onto the merchant. And I totally accept Gary's point. It's like, if you don't trust the merchant, it's like, if I don't know the merchant, then and my good or service might not show up. Yeah, I'll spend on a credit card to make sure the good or service. Like, I understand the value of payments and there's value to consumers that those protections provide. But if you know the person that you're buying from, if I know an auto dealer that sells cars in Bitcoin, I know the dealer personally, personal friend. If I was going to buy a car, I'd be more likely to spend, to go buy a car from him in Bitcoin if he gave me the opportunity, and he does. But I'm less worried about, well, if there's an issue, if I got a lemon,
So
if I'm buying something from China, I'll spend on a credit card, because if it shows up or never shows up, I want that protection. But it's not all or nothing.
So I really appreciated this exchange between you guys. Like, I think it's fascinating. Look for people into like the whole settlement. I'd never, even though I'm working on payment stuff, the idea of the insurance and the settlement, where I think this discussion boils down to is it's the same discussion around like what it takes to have a high trust society. And are we heading into that? Because like personal responsibility to me, if I'm a merchant, of course like Gary, we've talked about, I've heard Gary rail about like clothing and the number of chargebacks and how just like the whole business, the numbers are just fake, essentially. Like the income, there's so many chargebacks. It like that whole piece of the system requires government bailouts and insurance and everything else. But are we moving as a society into a place that we can have that level of trust with most of our merchants, right? Or are we trying to bring that back? Because to me, as you just pointed out, Parker, if I have a high level of trust and the people I'm doing business with, then it can make sense to send them my Bitcoin. But if this is like most of the transactions, I think most of us do, with some corporate blob entity, like are we transitioning there? And does that force this like whole discussion into kind of a niche as far as who the target audience is?
No, it's not a niche because while there's certain transactions where you don't have trust and you might need that protection, it's like, those are e-commerce transactions, and you might, buy a good or service online with a business for the first time and use a credit card, and then, every time you buy something, it shows up at your door. Well, if they turn on the ability to pay Bitcoin, you might have never met the person, but you're like, oh, well, the goods show up. I'm willing to pay. But if you're at any point of sale, there's de minimis risk to you. You're getting your good or service, and you're walking out the door. You don't need insurance. I'm just saying that, like, Gary brings up a good point. There are various different, like, payments is not a one size fits all. There's various different forms of commerce, and they need different payment solutions given the nature of the individual type of trade. Like, e-commerce is different than point of sale, which is different than buying a piece of real estate, which is different than buying a car, which is different than transacting in oil, right? And
they're all the same to me, man.
Well,
they're the same to me. See, I just look at this as why would I use my hours, the remaining few hours I have left on this planet, to in exchange for money, in exchange for something. Y'all taught me that, right? Hey, Gary, look, you're a prostitute. You're on the treadmill. Your time is getting less, but you're getting paid less. And you have to charge everyone exponentially. Like, I hear all this and I'm like, look, why do I care? I just care about what is the best trade for me when I'm paying my housekeeper. She does not value Bitcoin.
Oh, she doesn't value Bitcoin.
I don't want to teach her about doing any of that because I think I'm pissing in the wind in a massive hurricane. We have 8 billion people to do it. The only way 8 billion people learn about Bitcoin is through centralization.
Well, use that example. Say your maid comes to you and says, "Hey, Gary, I figured out dollars get destroyed."
No problem. Okay. However, I'm gonna now. I love her and I love her family. I'd probably give her some Bitcoin.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's very different. See, I'm talking about a transaction with, dude. It's just a transaction. I want to use the most toxic, ugly money possible that gives me the highest rights, and I want to retain my bullets. I do not want to go into a war and start shooting all my bullets off at rabbits, only to find out, oh shit, dude, there's some aliens out here. I wish I'd have saved my fucking real ammo. The real ammo is Bitcoin.
Well,
and
if
I don't give you a discount, like, I'll sell you a piece of art right here, okay? I'll give you a discount for fucking Bitcoin. I'll give you a discount.
So in that case, you're the merchant, right?
Yeah, but you know what? I would never offer that to the world because there isn't any consumers that can afford my fucking art. We haven't penetrated the market, not even close yet.
Right, but if you owned, I don't know what, in terms of your operating businesses that you have, if you turn the script around as something that you're selling to the market as a good or service. If you own a piece of real estate and it's got 1,000 doors, and you say, hey, if you want to pay rent in Bitcoin, come on.
Dude, they can pay me in rubies. I don't care what they pay me in.
Well,
they can pay me with cash.
I bet you won't take rupees. Now,
I'll take anything because I like.
Do you take anything?
Converting FX is not a big issue.
But do you take anything?
Yeah, I do take anything. I would literally take any kind of form of payment from someone for an exchange. Now, I don't really accept very much money from people, but
okay. Well, that I'm saying, like, if you thought about a tangible business, like, there's a reason why most business owners in the U.S. don't accept rupees. right? Like they're opinionated of what money.
For the same reason they don't do Bitcoin, dude. They don't understand how to do the FX. It's an FX.
But I'm saying the people who do, the people who've, and like our focus is not to go to somebody who has no conception of why Bitcoin stores value over time and be like, Bitcoin's the best thing since sliced bread. I agree. There's not enough hours in the day to do that. But there is this logical progression. Once somebody starts to come to understand Bitcoin and they understand fiat and they understand that the Fed created 5 trillion new dollars with a click of a button between 2020 and 2022, and they're going to do it again, and they're going to keep doing it until that dollar thing no longer works, and they're running a business and they've figured out Bitcoin, they're going to say, hey, if somebody gives me a tool that makes this easy to receive, that's in my interest.
Now, Parker, are these the same people that lined up to take vaccine shots over and over and over again? Because I think you're talking about.
I didn't do that, but
yeah, but I think what we're talking about is mass adoption, right? I'm talking about 8 billion people, and you're talking about. I think you may be talking about a 30-year journey on Bitcoin to get it adopted at the merchant consumer level. In order to really get this to work fast, and by the way, I've never said you could accomplish this quickly. I think everyone is underestimating how long and hard the consumer journey is. The last minute, the last mile, that last touch of the payment is very, very fucking difficult. That's why I keep telling people 52 years for probably the biggest and most protected monopoly in history. Okay. 52 years, dude. The point is, wow, dude, it took them a fucking long time. You can't go to a soccer match or a rugby match, a tennis game, a pro football game without seeing Visa, MasterCard everywhere. You don't even notice it. It's so subconscious at this level. And it still took 52 years, and they have made no dents in China, dude. China said, fuck off. Get the fuck out of here, right? So they can't even penetrate the global market. Bitcoin's trying to penetrate the global market all by itself on a $1.7 trillion asset class, which has really fucking clunky technology, dude, and a marketing team that sucks.
Right, but like think about it. It's like the same way that, the first time somebody saw a credit card reader, like the way I think about this.
They give you insurance rights, dude. Do you understand that?
No, but I'm saying, hold on.
To go to the consumer and say, look, we're going to give you more insurance on your plastic so you can go through all this adoption shit. They gave them 3.5%, dude. I mean, it's a big number.
Yeah, but I'm saying in terms of the clunkiness and I know this isn't what you were saying, but like there's some people that look at, tap to pay, with Apple Pay, and they're like, like this is so seamless, like Bitcoin payments are clunky. But that same person would be like, oh, you're telling me that businesses will adopt this clunky reader that has 3 sheets of different color paper?
Yeah, but you went back 20 years, bro. You can't.
Right, but how do you think that we get to the point where it's not clunky? Is that you have to start from a place of building tools that are a little bit clunky. The people who recognize the value of it walk through the door. They start accepting it. Their businesses do well. Like a classic example of this right now is Steak and Shake. They decide, hey, we're gonna start accepting Bitcoin, and we're not just going to turn it.
Dude. It's awesome marketing.
It's awesome marketing because then they can say, hey, we can market to every Bitcoiner in the world, even if they're only 1% of them.
Yeah.
We can market to all of them
That's true. But
with
Parker,
one channel.
What would happen if Steak and Shake said we only accept Bitcoin?
Oh, why would they do that?
But what would happen? That's what I'm asking.
Well,
they would go bankrupt in 12 minutes.
It wouldn't be rational. But now their same store sales are up 18% because they turned it on, and they're not just accepting Bitcoin. They're starting to save in Bitcoin. They're doing both, right? Yeah. And nobody should spite their nose or like spite their face. Whatever that saying is about, cut off their nose to spite their face. Like people that are starting to accept Bitcoin, like they're accepting fiat too because they've got cost base in fiat, right? But if they were just gonna take the fiat and convert it to Bitcoin, dollar for dollar, they get more Bitcoin by accepting it, and that. From us to go from 0 to 100,
they can get Bitcoin. They can get more Bitcoin without accepting Bitcoin. Come on.
No, they can't.
Like yes, they can.
Not on a per transaction basis.
Oh well, no, but again, it's great for Steak and Shake. I will happily go to Steak and Shake and shake the manager's hand, but I will not give them Bitcoin. I will give them US dollars.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
give 'em
great.
in fact, I'll give them a credit card because, American Express is going to give me all these points. So that's the other issue is you have consumers that love these points. And I haven't seen any Bitcoin point companies yet.
Oh, Fold has a card that's Bitcoin back. But
I want
my
to bring
point is, I
Dustin
think
into
that's a
this.
great point that you bring up though, because we've got a rancher here in Austin, not the grocer that I go to, but he made a quote. He said, 35% of my sales are to Bitcoiners, but 10% are in Bitcoin. Do the math. He leaned into Bitcoin. He takes fiat, he takes Bitcoin, and Bitcoiners change their behavior without spending the Bitcoin. But part of what caused them to change their behavior to go spend more fiat with him was by accepting Bitcoin. Like, there's nothing says that you have to spend your Bitcoin, but turning on the optionality becomes very good and very logical for business owners.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I will say is, understanding Bitcoin is harder than understanding Bitcoin payments. And that if somebody doesn't understand Bitcoin, that's not the target market. Right. And I will also say that the thing that is holding Bitcoin payments back the most is not the technology, it's not the tax burden. It's that if you just think about a trading economy, if only 1 out of 100 people understand something, there's very little and low density to a buyer that has Bitcoin and a seller that wants to receive it. That's the biggest dilemma to Bitcoin payments. While that's true, the vast majority of people will come to understand Bitcoin when they can see that you can actually use it for things, that there is this mental hang up to even understanding Bitcoin when everybody is just buying and trading Bitcoin and they're sitting there thinking like, hey, you guys are all just staring at your digital wealth. To what end? And that doesn't mean like there's no moral imperative to spend your Bitcoin, but maybe 1% of society is going to be able to have enough vision to see, to go down a rabbit hole, to listen to podcasts and like try to understand the fixed supply. Is it credible or not? What about quantum? Like, there's just so much noise out there. And then if the end of that road is like, oh, we're all just buying this digital thing and you're telling me it's money, but you can't do anything with it. Well, the thing that actually closes the mental loop that will help people understand Bitcoin as money is that, like, when I go in and spend Bitcoin at this local grocer and buy beef and eggs, the people in the line behind me are like, oh, that's interesting. You know, it's not going to make them overnight understand it, but the absence of it is going to be a limiter. At the same time that I say, like, there's no moral imperative to spend your Bitcoin. Like, only do it if it makes sense for you, but it does make sense for the business owner to turn around and ask for it.
We're going to move to Dustin here for a second because he's interested in adoption. Like, and what you're describing, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, overly argumentative, is an MLM, a little franchise market that, you know, this is not like, I would not invest in this kind of idea because I'm like, hey, we're so early. See, I think people forget that maybe this isn't, like, you have to figure out how the adoption is actually going to occur. And I think you're going to need hundreds of millions of consumers saying, I must use this. And I keep going, why would they do that when they already have something that gives them a fucking get out of jail card? Dustin, what do you think, dude? Am I crazy?
That was a perfect softball and tee up. So thank you for that, for all of the things I'm working on. But it's going to lead to a part of the discussion that gets me in trouble with a lot of the Bitcoin maxis and Bitcoin people, which is I'm currently building something that I intend to onboard tens or hundreds of millions of people through the partnerships that I have through specific use cases. And I'm not using Bitcoin as the settlement digital layer behind it. I'm using Solana. And I think for several reasons. So I've been thinking a lot about this, and it gets to kind of my intro with the 21 million and like that actually being a limit, and the decentralization being a limitation on your ability to add all of the additional behind the scenes functionality that Gary's been talking about. We don't have a central organization that can add Bitcoin settlement layers or transaction disputes. And for that reason, I think it's great for lots of things that are like direct savings or people, or other extremely high trust environments. But I also can't get over the fact, right? We do this with the pizza thing every year, where it's like, I don't want to spend like a life-changing amount of money on something today. I think Bitcoin still has 20, 30, 50x in it. So every time I'm spending it, I'm overpaying by wherever I think it's going. If I'm not using if I'm not living paycheck to paycheck and I'm using my disposable income. So for me, the reason that I chose Solana is there is an inflationary aspect. There is a centralized aspect to be able to adapt to current like transactions. And there's much, the Lightning people were never able to sell me on like the layer 2 equals the layer 1, and that you somehow you get all of the benefits and speed and none of the extra onboarding. To Gary's point about onboarding, to onboard, we have exhausted the number of people who are going to be crypto people. Like, I feel like we've really tapped that market. There's not a lot of juice to squeeze from that stone. The next layer comes from people who are interacting with wallets and crypto who don't even know that that's what they're doing. There's some other functionality. And for me, that comes to micro tipping and token gating access to exclusive content. Those kind of things, right, are where it goes. And I've never looked at my Bitcoin as something, for example, if I was going to tip an adult creator, not that I would ever do this, don't get me in trouble here, but this kind of the system I'm building, right? I don't want to tip her in Bitcoin, right? I don't want to send her some of my stack, right, in a micro transaction style. I think Bitcoin as a savings instrument and an instrument for collateral is the lane that it has found, right? Which is to me, the beauty and what Bitcoin's real value is as the ultimate pristine collateral and as a savings instrument. Trying to make it everything else for money and currency, I think that there are structural frictions with some of the underlying features that make me love it, specifically around fixed supply and decentralization, that make it hard, flexible, and adaptable enough to be able to respond to how fast the payment markets change. And so, right, like it seems, and it's kind of the argument I was making with Doge, it might seem counterintuitive that like, oh, well, a deflationary or fixed supply means that the value goes up. Well, for some currencies, you don't want a fixed supply, right? You don't want the value to always be skyrocketing. You want to keep it level at a certain level because you want to be able to use it over and over again. So
that piece I disagree with. Like
where it gets difficult for payments.
That's where I disagree. Like you want like Bitcoin by definition has to be volatile because so few people own it. Like that 1% of people own it. If 10 times the world rushes in, they're pricing Bitcoin for the first time. The only way to go from volatile to stable is mass adoption. When over 50% of the wealth in the world has adopted Bitcoin, then the incremental demand can only be a fraction. Right now, we're living in a world where incremental demand can be orders of magnitude. You want that as the form of money that you're saving in. Like I would never save in Solana because it doesn't have the properties that will allow it to store value over time.
But I think that's what he's saying, right?
Now then it's like if your savings increases in value over time, even if it's volatile, then I don't mind going and spending $20 worth of it at the local grocer for ground beef and eggs because my money worked in my favor. It stored its value, and that the payments and the medium of exchange are one and the same with the store of value. That it's one of the concepts that I talk about in the book. Money converges to one, and it does so for fundamental reasons of trade. Trade is two-sided. You have to accept the form of money I have, and I have to have the form of money that you accept. Your willingness to save in that over time is the precursor to you saying, yes, I'll take that and I'll hold on to it. I won't just immediately convert out of it, because then you're not saving in it and its value doesn't store. And then people don't have it. They don't have the opportunity to spend it because there's not a reason to hold it in the first place. And so as more people are saving in this and as its value is increasing, the population of business owners that have figured it out that then turn around and say like, hey, go ahead and pay me in it, becomes more realistic. Then the other side of it is that really where we're focused on, I think, Gary, you're onto something there. It's like, how do you know what to build first? Well, you build where there's opportunities for overlap of people that are offering services that would accept Bitcoin and customers that would have Bitcoin to spend. So that's Bitcoin financial services that offer fee for service, or it's events like the Bitcoin conference or other conferences. It's Bitcoin miners, and so we really target high value transactions rather than low value transactions. Our average transaction size is between $800 and $1,000, people who are invoicing for services. And that,
See,
if you think about
that addressable market makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That's a serious buyer and it's a serious seller. It's the average Visa MasterCard ticket is around, well, it was 2 years ago, 106.38, I think. So you're in a different band though. This is a very different, like the problem with bringing you on the show is you're representing a business right now and you're moving it. And I'm trying to take a macro view of it and go, hey, there's 8 billion people we got to get to. It can't just be the $800 businesses. Now, in fairness, I actually think that it's going to stair step and it's going to be the 800 and the micro transactions. What Dustin's doing, it makes no sense to have Bitcoin involved with that. Like no fucking, I have some guns here, okay, but I don't use them all exactly the same. Some of them I keep completely loaded, and some of them I keep, there's different ways to solve problems. And I think microtransactions, Bitcoin is most certainly not set up for the $1,000 trades. But Parker, I bought a Node 40 with $4.5 million of crypto, Bitcoin, Solana, and ETH, I think. Did it on a Saturday afternoon. I acquired that company at a discount. And if I can't use Bitcoin and acquire it at a discount, I am not spending my Bitcoin. Not a chance in hell. I think I'm one of the best Bitcoin maxis in the world. You guys like, if I was to do what you do, I would immediately have an automatic, okay, I got to replenish. But I would still look at myself and go, why am I pissing in an ocean of retailers?
Well, right. But like, if somebody creates an incentive to do it because the cost of the transaction to them is less, you're sharing.
You've removed my rights as a consumer, and
that only applies to a certain level of transactions, and I'll cede to you where it's important.
But Parker, that is like the military is not going to give Raytheon 1,000 Bitcoin. Okay, the market you're talking about is the $106 market. That is how it happens. Otherwise, they're going to stay on dollars, credit cards.
Yeah, but like it's not necessarily the size. I was just saying we focus on the high value because that's where we see adoption happening first.
Agreed.
But also there is this progression, right? Where it's like, hey, the average ticket at the local grocery is not $800. It's between $50 and $100.
$38.
Right. It's between $50 and $100. And so my point is just that we're targeting where the payments are most logical to happen first, where you are going to have overlaps between consumers that have Bitcoin and merchants that want it. And the dilemma for any other crypto is like, again, if you think about this dilemma that's actually holding Bitcoin payments out, is that 1 in 100 people maximum understand Bitcoin and hold it. And like any metric you want to say, it's the population density of a trading economy being so less or like so low. If you say 1 in 100 get it, then you have to have 2 people to make a trade. do the math on you're at like a 1 in 1,000 possibility, right? Now, if you think about it with any other crypto is in a smaller market. There's fewer people that have adopted it than Bitcoin. So you have even a greater challenge of
Maybe,
somebody
but
that
at
has
least
the
they have a
crypto.
centralized marketing department.
What's that?
At least they have a centralized marketing department.
Well, but the reason they have a centralized marketing department is because the currency is centralized, and that's why it doesn't store value, and that's why so few people hold it.
No, the centralization
But
does
that's at least my view.
create better marketing and PR than decentralized. I mean, I think the Bitcoin story on marketing and PR is let's write a story on what not to do and not to have a central voice. Dude, I've lost billions, seriously, billions of dollars because the Bitcoin OGs really did not understand how to sell this and pitch it to me. They pitched it in the most bizarre way, and it put me off. And I'm still here, okay? I was aware enough to go, well, but it cost me $2 billion. I mean, that's a fucking serious amount of money because I was listening to you guys going, oh, really? Wow, it's a runaway train, right? Well, it has not been a runaway train. It's been one of these babies. Hey, you stick around the hoop of Bitcoin, you're going to be able to buy Bitcoin at 30, 40 cents on the dollar if you're just disciplined. You do not have to ape in. The train's not leaving the station forever and ever. It's a gradual thing. The question is, the gradual thing is, what does that mean? Because most Bitcoiners and crypto people, fucking gradual means 3 days, dude. They get anxious. And again, it shows you how small our market is. But I think the next level of buyer are guys like me. They're not Joe Retail yet, man. We're just so early. I just see this long chain of events that has to happen.
Right. But and I do think it's an interesting exercise to say, like, I don't know what it is about somebody that makes them able to see Bitcoin before the rest of the population. I don't think it's, you can see billionaires out there.
You just compare it to OpenAI, dude. OpenAI is more confusing than Bitcoin, but they just launched it. Here, fucking grab it. And now you got 800 million users. Bitcoin is like, you got to know too much.
Well, but it's people's life savings.
Well, but their life knowledge, all the data on these human beings being just given up to these companies. But my point is, you had one operating system, AI, just fucking flood the market out of nowhere, adopt like a motherfucker. And you got Bitcoin that's been here 13 years and we're still struggling, expanding. This space is not expanding at the retail level. It is only happening at major institutional levels right now.
So I would love to answer that. So, right, because I the first guys who pitched me Bitcoin in 2011, 2012, pitched it to me as a revolutionary way to build a parallel system. And it's what I fell in love with, and it's why I think we've attracted the kind of mindful, intelligent level, like community around Bitcoin that we have, is because there are the reason that Bitcoin is the revolution and has dramatically changed the world is it was built for largely political reasons in a response to the failures of our governance, of our money, of our monetary policy. Like all of those pieces, that's what Bitcoin was. And to solve those things, the revolution was in genuine decentralization and in the fixed money supply. And both of those things came from like that political background, but both of those things cause friction in your ability to adapt to all of the bigger things. I want to preserve, like, I'm probably in the middle of you guys on this because I want to preserve Bitcoin as the revolution and the pristine collateral and as the savings mechanism. I don't want to go the full Gary route and give up decentralization. I want it to be hard to get Bitcoin. I think part of the value is that the people who understand it are the leaders.
Wait, what is the average IQ of the population of planet Earth?
Probably like 90 something, 92.
Fucking sub 90, dude. Okay. If the population of America is 98 or whatever, I mean, we really just need to address the facts. Okay. Seriously, this is an overcomplicated product. Okay. I bought this iPhone and nobody had to show me how to use it. And now I pay $1,000 for it. Came out at $300. Like, you want to learn how to market, go to drug dealers and hookers. They give you a little taste for free. They make it easy for you to have a high, and they come back. When you come back to get a repeat performance, you get charged. Now, a lot of people will look at me and go, hey, that's just gross. Dude, that is marketing 1001, class A, B through Z. I mean, it's not rocket science.
Well,
Let me say some of that. It's not rocket science, but it is fundamentally different, right? And people,
no doubt about it. But the consumer doesn't give a fuck how different it is, dude.
Hold on. People have tried this before where like they literally gave Bitcoin to their friends. And what happens when somebody
disaster?
If you give somebody money, they will never treat it like money.
Well, that's worse. That's worse than buying potato chips for the same price of US dollars. It's giving it away. I agree with you totally.
You know, you have to understand it if you are going to then hold it through volatility, and that, you know, I can explain it to somebody that you might say is low IQ, and I could say the government's always going to print money. That's why everything at the grocery store is becoming more expensive. You should adopt Bitcoin. And that person that I know adopted Bitcoin in 2020. And then I can sit down with a very high IQ hedge fund manager, and they start saying, well, what about quantum? And what about all these things? And they're sitting here 90 times later, and they still aren't adopting Bitcoin. And so, you know, you can look at a business like Square. You talk about marketing, like the best the best marketing Bitcoin has is Jack Dorsey turning on the ability for any merchant that has a Square terminal to say, yeah, I'm
Agreed,
in on
that. Agreed.
You know,
Agreed.
But then you look at the Stripe guys, and they couldn't be further from understanding Bitcoin. They just, you know, paid $1 billion. So I'm glad for one of my friends who founded Bridge and sold his business to Stripe, but like they have an entirely different view. But Bitcoin has a great
marketing in the rails.
Because
they're enjoying profitability right now from the rails. They call it the rails for a reason. And Bitcoin is not just going to jump over. Look, you're dealing with a cartel, man. Like, this is the other thing Bitcoiners do. Like, I think you guys are being highly unrealistic in that you don't walk into a market that I've used the monopoly word a number of times here. I mean, this is a very sophisticated, like, I owned a company here. One of the reasons I wanted to get out of the company, I'm like, these motherfuckers can change the rules tomorrow morning, dude, and wipe my ass out. They should, by the way. I met with Visa and MasterCard at extremely high levels 3 or 4 years ago, said, hey, I can make, and the FTC, the FDA, the DOJ, and I think some IRS people, I said, I can eradicate half the chargebacks and refunds in the United States in 90 days. Every one of them walked out of the fucking room as soon as I said it. They are making so much money from this process. Okay.
So what are you saying? We go to the cartel and we say, "Hey,
no,
you should really
what I'm
accept
saying
Bitcoin."
is that you're pissing in the wind in a hurricane, thinking to use Bitcoin for a $800 transaction when I can buy it with US dollars for $800. Horrible trade, dude. You're making a massive mistake. We're not greasing the skids of anything unless that retailer's put Bitcoin on its balance sheet. Now that'd be cool. Okay, but I still don't really need to spend my Bitcoin to support him. I can go buy him a cup of coffee, dude. He wants me rich, and I want him rich, but I can't dictate if Dustin's really going to go on a Bitcoin policy and be a really good merchant or not. I can't. Like when you say, hey, I want my guys around me to be all sound, they're going to fucking decide whether they're going to be sound with or without my help.
And so Gary, I live this probably more than a lot of people. So like my background is in politics. When Bitcoin saved my life, right? Like alternative.
See, that's a great example, Dustin. Politics it's not hard. You don't create all these friction points on politics, man. It's just pitch. It's easy. I'm going to save the world.
Right. But the point I want to get at, so right, like for me, when I was debanked, if we're not for Bitcoin and alternative, like I don't know how I would keep my head above water, like legitimately. And I went on this streak where I tried to onboard everybody, right? I lovingly refer to them as the Tea Party grandmas, right? Like I was going to get Tea Party and I will never forget, like at some point I just realized that like I can't do this. and there's one example in particular, right? Like somebody who had I had onboarded came to me later. Was like, oh, I lost my phone and I'm trying, and there's only 11. I only wrote down 11 words instead of 12. There's got to be some way we can fix this. And it's like, yeah, no, not really, right? And so I also the next part. So I wasn't unperturbed. I continued. When Cash App made Bitcoin available for payments, I used to offer more tip to my cab drivers who work for me if they would accept Bitcoin. Because my thought was, if I just get them some Bitcoin, they'll see the advantage over time and be excited. And the opposite was true. It ended up being the kind of thing where it's like, could you walk me through how I convert this so I can turn it into dollars and use it the way I'm customarily to do it? And what I realized, and maybe this sounds elitist, I don't want Bitcoin necessarily to be for the masses. I want it to be a revolution. I want it to be a parallel system because I want it to be a shelter from the broken system. And I don't know that it scales to replace the Visa and MasterCards with all of the things that have to be taken in. I don't know that it remains a shelter for me to escape to if we get the overwhelming broad adoption. And I also think that the friction points of decentralization and fixed money supply also are limitations on the ability to get mass adoption. So again, I'm not willing to give up decentralization and the fixed money supply and all the things that made Bitcoin the revolution in order for every dipshit with a 68 IQ to be able to try to have some, because they won't respect it the way we do.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, though, if there's a form of money in the world that has a fixed supply and that can't be debased, it can't be printed, it solves a problem for all 8 billion people in the world. It doesn't matter what we want. Water moves downhill. And some people aren't going to have it when their currency hyperinflates and they're going to lose all of their savings. That's happened to people in Lebanon. It happens to people in every country where there's hyperinflation. It happens to people in Argentina. It happens to people in Turkey. Humans are survivalists, and the people that figure it out are going to get on their lifeboat. And then the business owners that have really figured it out are going to say, hey, I figured out why this money works better. You can pay me in it if you want to. You don't have to. But if you want to, you can pay me in it. And that's the only way out. This because it's the only way we get out of the problems that fiat creates. And so I'm just describing the way the world is progressing and why it's going to progress that way. And it's not going to happen overnight. Understanding Bitcoin's hard. People have given Bitcoin out. People have lost Bitcoin. People have bought Bitcoin. People have lost Bitcoin. People have bought Bitcoin, bought too much and sold it because it doubled. And then it went up 10x. And, it's that's life. But I'm also a realist. We're not going to have the whole world and Visa, MasterCard, adopting this next year. Right. But as more institutional adoption happens, as Jack Dorsey turns it on, as other businesses see that their businesses are doing better, as Steak and Shake's competitors see that what Steak and Shake is creating an advantage for them, people do this out of competitive pressure. They act in their own self-interest. And so even though there are challenges and there are frictions to the adoption of Bitcoin payments, there's also every incentive dictating why it's going to grow faster as a payment rail than any other market. It's small, drop in the bucket today, but it's going to grow faster than the rest of the market.
So I think of it like this, right? The dollar was so absurd on so many levels that if we minted it as a shit coin on Solana, which everybody in the comments definitely loves that I brought up Solana. Shout out to you guys. But no, right, if we minted it as a meme coin, no one would buy it. It would be seen you didn't revoke mint authority. We have no idea what the total supply is. And you could print it. It's insane, right? To me, Bitcoin is the perfect opposite of that, right? Which is the fixed money supply, decentralization. I think there's room for lots of things in between that also make sense, right? Because I don't know that and we dismissed it very quickly early. I'm convinced because of those things that Bitcoin still has hundreds of X's inside of it over my lifetime. I will always save my money in Bitcoin. The problem I have though is like I don't want to. I see it as overspending every time I give somebody my Bitcoin, and so
right. But I think your logic there is wrong, because it's like if you gave him Bitcoin, like if you gave them fiat or something else, you could have used that same fiat to buy more Bitcoin. So you didn't really give up the future upside. You have to make the decision. Do I really need this? Is it worth spending? And if somebody has Bitcoin, it does sharpen the save or spend decision of like, hey, do I really need this?
I get the fungibility argument, right? Which is if I have all of this different value around me, right? Then if just because I'm taking it from one place, I could always replace something, right? It doesn't really matter where it's coming from. I completely understand that, but I also, right, like it's funny, I was going to say early in the show, because I think part of the reason the last couple of weeks has been so terrible is because of the precious metal Peter Schiffs of the world who like finally after 10 years have had their moment to gloat for a little while, which has just made it all that more unbearable. But I keep lots of different assets around me. I keep lots of different currencies. I see them for different uses. Like even Ethereum, which I'm kind of opposed to for ideological reasons, but like even smart contracts make sense as having a place in a more robust economy. I see the room for slightly inflationary total. Like I see the room from Doge, which is hyperinflationary, like on purpose, to Bitcoin, and with lots of things in between for different uses in ways that make sense to me. And I want to preserve, like Gary is always making the argument about like, basically, I'm gonna say this roughly, but like I will shorten it as fuck decentralization, right? It's too confusing to get people on board, and we need to get people on board. And all the stuff you have to do with your seed phrases and your sovereignty and your self-custody, like we need to get past all that shit because it's withholding it. I actually disagree. I don't want to get past like that shit, because that shit is what the revolution was. And so that's where I think the friction is.
Look, I'm just being pragmatic. Okay. Like I probably own more Bitcoin than people, know. And most certainly I own more Bitcoin at a higher price than most people that talk on podcasts. And I continue to add. I'm just saying that in its evolution, the way Bitcoin has been rolled out, look, we would be in a very different place if, the Ethereum people and all the other peeps didn't try to replicate this and have their egos just fucking go crazy and try to create a bunch of Me Too's. This is a problem. You have to confront the crypto space is impacting Bitcoin. And that, like, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to be really factual because my investment is so fucking large here. Like, I can understand why my sailor gets a little irritated every now and then. Like, hey, knock the non-core and core shit off, dude. Okay, this is a $1.7 trillion asset. Don't treat it like it's a fucking junior high school. This is a problem. You do not see this from MasterCard. You don't see this kind of behavior. Okay, they control their environment. I'm just going to be really honest here. The crypto people fucked up so badly because they went into this decentralized hallucination. Why are we centralized right here, dude? We're on a centralized platform because it's highly efficient is why. That is why. And people will either show up and like it. There's 3,000 people here. They either like it or they don't like it, but it's either trustworthy or not. I don't control the platform's viability. I control only the content that shows up here. Right. And I look at it and go, wow, man, this is a really bad marketing program. Okay. Like, for instance, I don't believe this is merchant led. This is consumer led. And the consumer if the consumer has an IQ of 98, dude, you got to dumb this motherfucker down big time. It's got to be easier and cheaper than dollars. It's got to be funner and sexier than dollars. I'm just telling you what you need to do, okay? I'm not saying how you do it, but until that happens, the dollar is going, and Visa and MasterCard, look, Visa and MasterCard are all over this space. They're just not jacking off all over these spaces talking about it. They're investing so much money, it's stupid. And they're frightened of this space. They make trillions of dollars in fees. In fees just for sitting there as an intermediary. I think most of that, and I think there's going to be amplified cases where the very small, big transactions, the retail institutional transactions occur on Bitcoin, and then micro transactions occur somewhere. Like if I was Lightning, I'd be looking at fucking porn. I'd be looking at porn, gambling, and gaming, but I think they're probably too pure to focus on those areas. Why would I do that? Because I am a fucking tactician. You would not go try to attack the grocery margins that Visa and MasterCard make. You attack the gross charges, and the gross charges are 15 and 20% to porn, gambling, and gaming that they literally charge the merchants super fees for to be a part of a club that validates their ability to take these type of transactions, even though these transactions are not illegal. So if I was crypto, or if I was building a crypto tool, I would really understand the payment system extremely well, what benefits it does and does not offer, and how do I put myself in there knowing that it took Visa and MasterCard lobbyists to agree to their duopoly and 52 fucking years. And this is why I've been like, dude, this doesn't happen retail first. It has to get institutionalized, where my sister has Bitcoin and she's just happy with it. She's jacking off on her Bitcoin thing because she's like, well, I don't know how I got it. I got it through iBit. And Parker, in fairness, half the people that bitch about me still, hey, dude, you're not a big self-custody guy. I'm like, seriously, I own more Bitcoin in the zeros than you do. And you're claiming I'm not a good Bitcoiner because I have 2 daughters. I'm like, why would you ever even talk about self-custody? This should not be something we even discuss in public, quite frankly. It's like nobody has any money if they're talking about self-custody. I have a shitload of money, okay, and 2 children. I am not talking about self-custody. In fact, I have $6 on a fucking Trezor, okay? And now why? Because I don't want my family to get hurt.
Hey, I understand that point of view. I also understand the other point of view that, and again, this isn't. I think that I think it's great.
The debate is the debate is. We got to remember what the purpose of the debate is, though, right? The debate is
on payments.
Does this move to payments? Is Bitcoin a real use? Would you or is it really bad the way it's going? Because I could build a case. This is awesome. Too many people are in too big of a rush to penetrate the largest market on planet Earth, and I think we're going ass backwards about it. I'm really excited. I just think we're going the wrong way.
How is it ass backwards? Of like, it's great that in my mind, it's great that BlackRock turns on, its ETF. It's great.
I like that.
I think it's Harvard awesome. Buys the ETF, and it's great that Abu Dhabi whoever buys the ETF. It's great that the state of Texas bought the ETF. It's great that people self-custody Bitcoin. Honestly, it's like if it's not for you, it's not for you. It's like you're discounting the risk that somebody censors you and says don't move money for that person. But if that's the risk calculus, then that's the risk calculus. My point
on that, my calculus is with the size money I'm talking about, I don't really just trust myself. And by the way, I've never looked into one of these devices. And actually, I don't have an engineering degree to know if there's a bug in there. I know some people picked up a cell phone in one country and it blew up in their fucking face. So I don't know what's on. To me, I am a very pragmatic person, dude. I have 400 weapons in my home. I'm cool with self-custody.
And that's fine. I think more to I think the main subject matter here is like, it's logical for businesses to accept Bitcoin as payment. Like when Square turns on Bitcoin payments, that actually helps people understand Bitcoin.
Agreed.
Right.
Totally agree.
So, but it doesn't.
You
take
agree
the
they're
place.
centralized? You
What's
agree
that?
they're centralized operation?
Yeah.
And you think that's good because they have massive distribution already. That's
Yeah.
the only reason you think it's good.
Yeah, and well, that's not the only reason that I think it's good. I think it's good because it makes it easy for somebody to turn on Bitcoin payments. And there's a like you made the point about this software that we're on right now. The incentives of private property and running businesses and taking risk and delivering a service, there's inherent centralization to running a business and offering a service. And then there can be degrees of how you deliver that service that might either make more or less sense in a centralized way. But it's creating solutions for the market. There are people that we work with, as an example, like Zapray is a centralized service. Now, we support people accepting Bitcoin non-custodially, but then we also plug in Strike, which is a custodial service. There's people that want that and demand that. It makes it easy. There's other people that want our centralized service, but in a way that they receive their payments directly. Great. There's markets on both sides. So my broader point is it's very logical. Like there's an economic incentive why Square decided to turn on Bitcoin payments for its customers. It sees a market opportunity, and they market on that side of cheaper transactions, right? Where it's like, hey, right now it's free. In a year, it's going to cost 1%, but they're competing against credit cards at 3%, and they make money off credit card fees, but they're playing a long game, right? They now have a competitive advantage over every other point of sale terminal for anybody that wants Bitcoin. Like anybody that would be a Steak and Shake that has a point of sale, they'll change from whatever they're using to Square if it's a market segment that Square targets. And so it's not going to be random that someday Stripe comes around and figures it out, and we don't, I don't know who's going to be next. It might be Toast.
They'll
Toast
be all of them,
say,
dude. All of them.
it's eventually going to be all of them, but somebody has to go first, because the way that technology progresses, the way that we get from those, and again, it's, I understand your points, Gary, and I think that they're valid points on the Visa MasterCard cartel. But the first people that adopted the swipe, like it took time for us to then go from that incrementally to tap to pay with an iPhone, and I think that it's very logical that we're going to start very small with Bitcoin payments, and then boom, Square's going to turn it on. And then there's going to be people sitting out there that are institutional people investing in Bitcoin that aren't going to be accepting Bitcoin as payment, say, like Square, BlackRock has an ETF and Square's turning on payment rails. I'm more likely to buy it because now this whole thing is making more sense to me. It's like, if I want to just own it, I can.
So, hey, man, as you bring this up, and I don't want to abuse your time or Dustin or Dana's, but one thing we have not talked about is the proliferation of stable coins, which I have been a big fan of, by the way. And before Fred clips this, Gary's a big fan of stable coins. First off, you can't take shit out of context, okay? Like people have to listen to the whole thing. First off, stable coins, I know it's a scam because the word stable, it should be linked coin. It has no stability whatsoever, right? Like you cannot claim they're stable. But I think that tool will educate users, fiat users, in a way that will actually be one of the best advertising programs for Bitcoin ever. Because it will get them used to, it's all digital. See, most people need to start to understand all their money's already digital. They're just being charged too much for it. That is the truth. It is all already digital, and you cannot convince me that it's not. Okay, so what do you need? You need the consumer to be able, hey, this is fun to do. I like to do this. This is cool. I'm not using Visa anymore. I'm going to use this other service. Because I think the credit lines that you see consumers under, they already have plenty of ways to do payments. They do, man. So
yeah, I mean that's what I struggle with stable coins is that and I agree with you. It's like their value is linked to whatever the underlying asset they hold. If it's all dollars, it's declining as the dollar's declining against goods and services. But the challenge I see, and you have,
when you got a population of 98, dude, we can't get philosophical here. If you
no, I'm saying,
get into, hey,
but what I'm saying, and you, based on your background, the fiat payments have a better perspective on this. So I'm curious your view is that as a consumer who has a credit card and has Apple Pay and Google Pay, I don't see the thing that makes it clear to the average person, why do I need to get this stable coin to then pay this merchant?
The good adoptions, they won't even know. The user experience will have almost zero interruption for 95% of people.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, if it's underlying a credit card.
But dude, that's your audience, Parker. That is the audience. Like, we have to be fair, man. This is the audience. Well, and this audience already, sorry, Dustin, but we don't confront that there's inertia there. I already have a relationship with 14 banks, man. Okay, like, they like me. They buy me lunch. They do shit. They like, inertia is a real thing. Like, I don't care how many Bitcoin you have. Like, dude, inertia is a real thing. It's like gravity. Migration is very problematic for most people. Now, if you're brand new and you have $12 and that's it, and you're coming into Bitcoin, but that's not the audience you want, dude. You want me using your service. How do I do that? It has to be easy.
Well, so
it is easy.
To my friend Parker,
easier.
Couple of the things that you said that really made me think and stuck with me today that I'm very appreciative of. It's great talking to you. The merchant side of this makes so much sense. So like, right, the merchant-led side of this, because it solves such a big problem for the mom and pop shops, but you also framed it in a way that I really appreciated, and I kind of took it as, right, like high trust, which is you pay Bitcoin when it's your local rancher. You pay Bitcoin when it's the mom and pop shop. You don't pay Bitcoin when you're ordering on TikTok and you have no idea what's coming from China or what the quality is going to be. I love it. Like, to me, this is also where the growth should be focused on and happening is let's get the high trust merchants and steer payments like that. That's where the growth can happen. It makes sense to happen. And you're talking to the audience who can understand it and participate. I think that was incredibly thought-provoking. I think Gary, I had never thought before, and this gets to, Gary does this to me like every couple months, which is Gary will lay out something. I had no idea before like 6 months ago, no idea what happened when my card swiped. Right? I had no idea that it goes to a payment gateway. The payment gateway decides which bank it's going to get charged to, who's going to provide, right, what the rate's going to, that all of there's a million variables, and like my information goes through like 60 different vendors before I actually like deliver. I had no idea about any of that. In fact, I feel like I need a master's degree to fully understand payment systems when you start diving into chargebacks and all of the other systems. This becomes something that's really interesting about the adoption conversation, though, right? Which is how when we go from being in a high trust community where if I'm sending you Bitcoin, I can expect you're going to actually deliver on whatever it is we say, to the masses who are overwhelmingly scamtastic and dealing with people who will exploit any system for any amount of money that they can take out of it. What happens when you add that layer of general adoption, and how capable is Bitcoin of adapting to moving from a high trust community to a low trust, like global overwhelming adoption?
It's actually not a high trust environment. It's actually a secured, insured environment for the consumer. See, this is the problem. And I've been in this space long enough now. And very few people talk about the obstacles that one must create for the consumer to move to this adoption. This is why I'm like, wow, I will never fucking spend my Bitcoin unless I get 20% discount. Because I actually know what it costs for a consumer, for a merchant. Look, the truth is you, me, Dana, and Dustin are all paying too much for our services because of a word you use, Parker. You said you used a word, you're not in this industry, friendly fraud. It has a word. It's so fucking large. Okay, it's called cyber theft, actually. That's the real word, cyber theft. They call it friendly fraud to make it sound better. And Visa and MasterCard don't take this massive hit. And Visa, MasterCard will not take the massive hit because if you go into their earnings releases and you scroll down and go, hey, I want to go look at value-added services, you will see Visa and MasterCard. Why is the fraud problem in credit card transactions going up exponentially at a greater CAGR than adoption of credit cards? After Visa and MasterCard bought two companies to stop it all, it has literally gone up in a greater CAGR fraud. They're fucking, if they don't put all those earnings they're making in the value-added services from that monopoly service they do, they like, their earnings would be shit. Okay. Like I think 25 to 30% of their earnings are coming from value added services that no one in Bitcoin even knows. Oh, well, I didn't know Visa and MasterCard had a value added services. You think they're just doing transactions and it's all labeled under fraud. But if we said, oh, wow, 3% of all the transactions in Visa and MasterCard are fraud, the fucking stock would drop tomorrow morning, dude. Right? You're on mute, Parker. And your world is, hey, there will be zero fraud. Now, this is a big chasm to fucking build a bridge over. Somewhere there's an in-between, but I'm not taking off my American Express card if you don't offer me an insurance policy or a discount.
Yeah, and I like the way I see it, it's like combination of everybody working on Bitcoin payments is going to demonstrate that there are merchants that want this and there's value delivered. And then as people see there's an opportunity there, more stake and shakes pop up and there's value added services of having reversibility. Sorry, my baby's crying in the background. That then someone's going to say, oh, let me create a processor for Bitcoin.
She's the Bitcoin baby, dude. She can't cry.
Hey,
she can't dispute anything.
Hey, that's fine. But all I'm saying is that like those same constructs, if there's value there, are going to be built on top of Bitcoin and say, hey, you just paid this merchant, but we're going to put a hold on it for 10 days or 20 days in case there's a dispute. And if there's a dispute, then and then the way it's going to evolve is it's going to like, hey, there's a cost to the merchant for that, and the merchant's going to say, hey, if you pay me in this way versus
hang tight. You're a little wrong there.
Why?
Well, because in the Visa MasterCard world, there aren't just merchants. There are super merchants who are allowed to do whatever the fuck they want. Facebook, and everyone wants to Google or Grok, Forbes magazine, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, Meta, 8% chargeback rates on Riot games. This company suffered 8%. By the way, the rules on chargebacks is 1%. When you hit 1%, you get shut down. How the fuck could Facebook run at 8% chargeback ratio such that Forbes would write an article suggesting that the consumers and their parents are responsible for educating these children on understanding there's real money, dude. Like literally this Forbes magazine wrote an article. My question was, wow, dude, how did you guys ever get to 8% and stay there for 3 years? Like I would love to find. To me, this is the area that the Bitcoin industry isn't doing well. All you guys that are trying to go for the consumer, you have to spend money on lobbying. You have such a disadvantage, dude. Okay. China tried to bring Ant Financial in here. They lasted 18 months. They ran away with their tail in, but Ant fucking Financial couldn't make it here because they couldn't offer refund rights and chargeback ratio rights. Now
Right,
that,
I'm just saying
but I'm just saying that if you guys don't level the playing field, because eBay has different chargeback rate.
We're all on the same team.
Yeah, but I'm not a retail. Like for me, this is too heavy of a lift on this. I just think I think we end up there. But right now, we need massive institutions buying Bitcoin and driving the price to $1 million fucking dollars.
Well,
So the sats are a penny.
What I'm saying is we need both, and both are logical.
right, but
Once somebody figures it out, if they are a business owner and somebody puts a product that makes it easy for them to plug into their business, they're going to say yes. And then as more of those businesses say yes, someone's going to say, hey, it would actually make sense to build some of this infrastructure that exists in the fiat world over in the Bitcoin world. Why don't we have a processor that allows for holds on money and chargebacks and easy refunds? Like we talk to businesses like, hey, if I don't have an easy way to refund, then, for legitimate cases, then I can't accept this because I do, thousands of transactions. If I have to go through a manual process 50 times, right, we get that, sure. But we got to have enough businesses accepting it to then attract the capital to be able to deliver those solutions. So it's a very logical progression, but there needs to be volume there for then someone to say, yep, like here's $10 million or $20 million for you go build these products, right? But you have to have demonstrated that there's some demand out there to then dictate the capital to flood in. And that's why I view Square as being such a watershed moment, that it's going to be easier for investors to say, hey, this is an investable space. Here's real capital. You guys were, developing on a very small capital base, but there's something real here. And now this is more investable. Now the products catch up, and we get to a point where it's tap to pay Bitcoin, not scanning QR codes.
Dude, tap to pay would be awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Like that'd be awesome. Dustin, what do you think, man?
Dude, great point on lobbying and politics. Right?
I think if you don't have a balance sheet for that, collectively as a group of Bitcoin retail kind of machine activists, you guys got to do that. You're not really competing with each other. You're competing with MasterCard and Visa cash, dude, checks.
And your survival place in the market. I think of the number of times I've watched the politicians just destroy competition on behalf of their daddies at Visa and MasterCard, or the other people who control and have monopolies. And again, you don't really start facing these issues until you start getting big adoption and use case. And all of a sudden, Senator Buford's, daughter lost her Bitcoin. And now they're actually going like, all right, how do we get it? This is unacceptable. We must do, like, we live in such a idiotic political reactionary space that one of the things we're going to have to get very sharp at very soon is making sure that we know how to flex our political muscles, which is as complex as a system as Bitcoin and everything else. Like there's so many elements. I really appreciate. What I love about Bitcoin the most, though, is that I've watched it grow and find its lane. Bitcoin does not have to be everything. It does not have to be every piece. It does not have to underpin every piece of the revolution in order for it to be the leader and the one that started it all, and for it to maintain its place, right? Like pristine collateral, store of value, and the best ever vehicle for savings with unlimited upside in our lifetimes. Like to me, I don't need it to be everything else in order to appreciate Bitcoin. Like again, you know what, Dana, I think it's time that we have a Solana showdown. I see you people in the I think the time has come for me to throw the gauntlet down and represent Team Solana.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of slack about Solana in the comments.
Yeah,
I was telling you, once you accept, I agree with it. It's in the sense that we don't need Bitcoin to be everything tomorrow, and I don't go on a holy war jihad to be like, hey, you gotta accept Bitcoin right now, or you even have to buy it. It's like there's the saying that everyone gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve. But I try to help educate people that are interested.
That's a
people have
horrible
to
saying, man.
be curious about it, but it's true. Like I've been trying to get, people that I know that I care about to understand Bitcoin since it was $1,000 and they still haven't figured it out. And they're in a worse position financially for not having done it. At that same time, if you ever turn around,
you could look at Parker, you could look at it differently and say that the marketing pitch to them was bad.
Well, it worked on a lot of people. So
Did it?
And a lot of people benefited. Yeah. Like in terms of like people in my circle. But I wanted to make a point that's like if you flip it around, it's like, well, all of that can be true. If you get paid in Bitcoin for something you did of value, it hits different. And once you do that, once you start getting paid in the form of money that can't be printed, like you're going to keep doing that more, and other people are going to see that other people are benefiting because they did it. And it's just, and it all ties back to the form of money that can't be printed, the fixed supply. The incentives dictate it, that everybody has an incentive to save in it. And it's not logical for someone to accept Bitcoin as payment if they have not first figured out why they should buy a little bit of it. And buying a little bit of it is a lot easier than investing in infrastructure as a business owner to do it. And it's wholly irrational or illogical to do it in the reverse order. Buy some Bitcoin first, 100%. But if 100% of people are saving in Bitcoin, do the math. Like who's the, that meme where the three Spider-Men are pointing at each other. Who's holding the bag? It's like if everyone's saving in Bitcoin, then everyone's going to have money to spend. And you're really going to care less about the money going up, because when everyone owns Bitcoin, when the entire world's adopted it, it's not going up with 10x and 100x. I just,
how long do you think
the vantage point that I look at it is it's 100% logical to accept it as a business owner. As more do, that will actually make it infinitely easier. It's easier for people to adopt Bitcoin because BlackRock has an ETF. Great. It's going to be easier for people to actually buy the ETF because they're like, oh, people are spending this at a Square coffee shop or a salon or wherever. Like, I'm going to go buy a little of the ETF. This Bitcoin thing might take off. So it all works together. It's all in the same stream. And Bitcoin payments are just downstream of someone first buying it and knowing why they'd want to save some in it.
Well, it's the holy grail, dude. Okay. If you can get retail, it's the holy grail. This gentleman says there's 500 million people that own Bitcoin. I don't believe that's even close to true of any reasonable size. I think there's only 500 million investors on the planet, and there's less than 10 million people in Bitcoin in any reasonable manner. That would be $4,444, I think, if there's 10 million people in Bitcoin at current market cap.
Fewer than 1% of the companies
on Bitcoin. Do you believe that? I mean, what do you think the adoption level is today?
Max 1% of anybody that understands it.
Totally.
Not even like 500 million might be like you have $10 in an account or some amount of crypto, but like anybody that has any material exposure to it, maximum 1%. Like,
yeah, and this thing 1% of the S&P understand. Like, people do not have to understand stuff to use it, dude. Like I have a Range Rover. I drive 105 miles an hour. I have no idea how the fucking thing works. Not really. I don't know exactly how the wire, like I'm risking my life and I'm doing 100 miles an hour on tires that I don't know how they were made. So I don't think that you need to know anything about this to get adoption.
You don't need to know everything about how it works, but you have to have some, like if you're going to save some material percentage of your net worth, which I would say is above 1%.
You think that's actually, I think what you're saying is that we have to have people like Gary adopting Bitcoin as a store of value and getting rich, and then retail follows. Because I think we will agree on that.
Yeah.
The richer I get from Bitcoin, the more retail adoption we will have.
Right. And I think the comparison to driving a car, if somebody's driven a car for 40 years, they view it differently if they say, I'm going to take 5% of my savings and put it into something. One of my friends showed me a series of adoption curves of technology.
Yeah.
And the one that I think made the best corollary to Bitcoin, or how people save their net worth is airline adoption. It's a very flat adoption curve, and then it goes vertical. Because if you're getting on an airplane and you do that one time and it doesn't work, you're done. It's a risk of ruin. That people treat 5% of their savings or 10% of their savings like that. Like,
That's right.
I can't afford to lose it. And they have to have some conception. They don't need to know how Bitcoin works. They don't need to know what nodes do. They don't need to know really what mining it does, but they have to have some conception of why it will store value over time in order to save more than $20 in Bitcoin, like something material to them, because it's of great consequence to their livelihood.
Awesome. Well, really well said. Great debate. I appreciate both of you a ton.
I'm sorry for all the blood we left all over Parker. He's bleeding out of his right ear. He doesn't want to admit it, but
we're gonna
take a poll of the viewers.
Yeah, we're doing a poll. We're gonna do a poll of my ex and Gary's. I will say,
I think the poll should be questioned this way: did Gary assassinate Parker Lewis in the most beautiful, respectful manner possible?
I'm voting on
kind of blood splayed all over.
Do a straight win. Who won?
Yeah.
Well, bro,
we'll determine the
assassination
if it's anywhere close to 50%.
I enjoyed this conversation a lot because I enjoyed just listening. Like, I got into Bitcoin because of payments, and I didn't think of it even as like an investment. I should have. And I think that if companies were using it, right, it's like you're leveraging their marketing abilities and talking about Bitcoin more. It's like, that's very valid. And I think that, there's not, I personally completely see where Parker's coming from, and I see where you're coming from too, Gary. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what you guys think.
You can't stay in the middle, Blondie.
No, I was going back and forth actively the whole time, and I realized it's just because I was saying, oh, I'm not going to spend my Bitcoin, right? I was being narcissistic. Like, oh, well, I'm not going to do this. But then if you think about it, well, people don't know what happens to their money anyway. Who cares? Like, as long as it's getting more people aware and they're getting more touch points of seeing Bitcoin multiple times, isn't that actually good? Don't we actually want that?
Well, but Dana, this is a really good question. So, because you're probably the demographic. If you go into
because I'm a woman, I buy things because women buy everything. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I was actually talking about your age. I had nothing to do with your sex, but I appreciate that women are really focused on their sex. What I was asking was, why do you care how you transact? Do you really care? Do you really care? Or do you actually want the right to refund? Because women have a higher statistical ratio of refund and chargebacks than they do of filing for divorce, which is fucking huge, 72%. So the women file these, okay? So are you really going to give away your rights to return a pair of shoes?
Am I going to give away my rights?
Yeah, because you use credit cards. You like credit cards. You love your Visa, Master, American. You do. Every woman likes them, dude. Well, because most the women are the high users.
Why am I giving away my rights?
You and your
you have no refund rights when you do a transaction.
How often do you return?
Look. I did have a Steve Madden situation. No, this is what happened. I go into the store. This is what happened. I go into a store. Actually, these were the shoes for Michael Saylor's party. Okay, listen. I buy the shoes. They're in the box, and I bring them back to return them, and they tell me, "Oh, they've been worn." Okay, I walked around the store picking up all the shoes. They all have a scuff on the bottom. I didn't wear these shoes, ma'am. But I think that at a high enough cost, it's okay if you're willing to accept that this is like a wire. You don't get that. in some situations that would make sense, right? Or maybe even
Wait,
small amounts.
Which ones?
Buy a
Which
coffee, whatever.
situation? Which situation do you pull out your Bitcoin wallet over your Visa or MasterCard?
I'm not personally going to. However, I love what Steak and Shake
Why?
is
Why
doing,
not?
for example. I like their little Bitcoin on the bun. I think it's cool. I think it's like more inclusive. It's good. It's good for the greater good.
You
Like,
should make a Bitcoin perfume, Dana.
Good for the
You
greater
would
good,
sell
and it's
hot
good for
dog
Steak and
cake.
Shake.
and it's good for Steak and Shake.
Look, I told Grant when he launched his first fund, I said, bro, there's $15 million of marketing value in this alone. And he
Yeah.
laughed at me. Steak and Shake will get my business. They will get fiat dollars only because they're marketing something. It's awesome.
That's great. That's a great example. And I gotta get going. But like if Grant, because we need guys like Grant to go to his payment providers and be like, I want Bitcoin to be able to accept rents, and then they come to me and we build the technology in. But it's going to have to start with guys like Grant say like, I want the marketing benefit of this, but if I'm going to have the marketing benefit of it, then I need you people who deal with my payments to adopt this. And he's a big enough guy that he has the sway because we like the customers of the platforms are the ones that they do business with and pay.
It took me 2 hours to get you there, but I agree with you, bro. Customers matter.
I
The
want
end user is the key here.
I want to give one more, since this has been like Steak and Shake love fest the whole time. Whoever's doing their marketing is brilliant because I don't know if you remember, they targeted the Maha community by going to beef tallow when RFK and the Maha crew was talking about it. Like they found these really passionate niches and ways to appeal to them. Like really, really brilliantly done. Shout out to you, Steak and Shake. Shout out to all you guys. Much love. I'm out of here too.
Everyone follow Parker. Please come back again. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Dana, can you close out these two blowhards and I can end this show? Because I want to just go ahead and wipe up the blood of Parker Lewis.
Gary, appreciate coming on. Appreciate you.
Centralized debate. Is that why?
You guys need to read this book, okay? Awesome book. Young man wrote a great book. Read it. I think it's going to come true. I just don't think it's going to come true tomorrow morning.
No, sir.
Which gives me an awesome opportunity to buy some Bitcoin, not use it for Mars bars. Dana, I like this, okay? I thought this was a good – and by the way, Parker, see, he has a healthy ego. Like I was pretty hard on him today, right? And I like him. I've met him a couple of times. He's I don't know. I figure he's what age is he? 32?
Yeah, I think he's young, something like that.
Yeah, he's a young guy. I didn't want to say it that way, but since you said it, I can say it.
Okay.
But like, a healthy ego, like willing to like have the debate, not all stuck in his like, look, Bitcoin's adoption level right now. I think people that are investing in Bitcoin can get really confused on this topic and get defrayed from investing in Bitcoin. But I think the consumer side of this is so difficult to penetrate because of the adoption of inertia, cash, checks, wire transfer fees that are going to zero. I no longer have any wire fees. So we're seeing technology actually change the way other institutions are behaving. The other thing is we have to appreciate other institutions that serve consumers most certainly will react proactively to this. Now, they may take a while to react, but, I think we will get there. But I think that I still maintain that Bitcoin to be used, and I appreciate Parker's building a business, to use Bitcoin to buy something at the same price I could use a piece of toilet paper or a US dollar makes no sense to me. The reason I use toilet paper is in 2019, 2020, I bought probably, when they were saying, hey, people are hoarding toilet paper, they were complaining about people like me. And 2 months ago,
what did you do?
Well, I was buying shitloads of toilet paper. I was buying anything that I could buy.
Okay.
5 years ago, because I'm like, everything is getting ready to get expensive. So I bought half a garage worth of toilet paper, and I asked my housekeeper, Bobby, who you know, I said, she's been with me forever. I said,
Yes.
Bobby,
Yes.
Bobby, when was the last time you bought any toilet paper? Now, people think this is a really stupid story. You should really listen to this story. 2020, I bought a hell of a lot of toilet paper. Okay. And 5 years later, I looked at Bobby. The toilet paper was getting small in the garage. I was using it for something else. I said, hey, when was the last time you bought toilet paper? And it dawned on me when she said, I haven't bought toilet paper since you've lived here. 4.5 years. You know what the price of toilet paper is today? It's tripled in the price to the US dollar. The store value on toilet paper since 2020 has been better than the dollar. Wow. Crazy, dude. The paper on the US dollar is better than toilet paper, okay? I would most certainly not use a $100 bill to wipe my butt, right? So, like, the toilet paper is literally better paper. It's more useful, and I paid less for it. So, I'm paying more for it. Anyway,
That's really sad.
I thought that was interesting, but that's my way of, no, it's not sad. It's what's happening to the dollar. And I have an option, and it's called toilet paper or Bitcoin. Like, I think you could buy toilet paper right now. I just bought 4 pallets of water. I'll never be able to buy water cheaper than I bought that water.
Yeah.
I will never be able to do that.
Shrinkflation as well. We have shrinkflation going on.
Well, maybe we do. I'm not sure we do really have inflation going on, but for certain things, I think most certainly they're going to be inflated. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Hope the audience enjoyed it. I thought it was robust.
I thought so too. What kind of topics are you wanting to be getting into lately? What do you think? Because I've been spending a lot
what
of
we
time.
should do is get to the other part of this topic, which was never sell your Bitcoin, which we didn't even discuss. We went from using it for buying handkerchiefs to never sell Bitcoin. I don't agree with never selling Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
But I have no idea why anybody's selling Bitcoin today. That is just stupid, because I'm getting fucking loans all over the place for my Bitcoin, and the rates are coming down. I mean, I'm 5%. Why would I ever sell my Bitcoin?
Yeah,
That's
well, when you say
crazy.
never, you're more talking about this like.
Well, since I'm older than most people
frame.
here, never is never should have a lot of significance to people.
Mm-hmm.
Never is how long is never? 10, 20, 30, 40 years? Never is a word that's like doesn't have any definition, a little bit like happiness. So like when I hear that, I'm like, well, what are you talking about, man? Never? I'm going to die. And 46% of the people that own Bitcoin are going to get a divorce. I guarantee you those 46% of the people are going to sell their Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And the people that die with their Bitcoin, they're going to sell their Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
So never is just a very, very, very long time. The world is a really changing, rapidly changing environment. I mean, I hope the 3 or 4 million people that were lucky enough to get Bitcoin at $300, I really hope that they move into the market and liquidate their Bitcoin, because their incentives, in my opinion, this is the biggest problem with Bitcoin. The incentives of the 2 to 3 million coins at $300, there's no incentive for them to get liquid. And this will always be a problem for Bitcoin until that gets repriced. And you have people like me going like Fred's like, oh man, Gary's selling. Dude, I'm buying the shit out of this stuff.
Where did this come from? Where did this rumor come from?
He
Henry
doesn't have
said
any more money. He's not buying
should've-
anymore. People that say
should've
shit
had
like this
a
aren't buying anymore. Okay. They've run what I've learned is when people point their fingers at you, they're usually doing what they say you're doing. And I think there's a lot of Bitcoiners that won the lottery ticket and are not buying Bitcoin. This is why I keep saying Bitcoin's going down, because there isn't any organic buyers. They're not Bitcoin centric buyers. There may be some outsiders, but they're not even buying the Bitcoin they're buying. The Bitcoin community tells them they're a bunch of prostitutes because they're buying paper Bitcoin. Like, dude, this is bad marketing. Okay. Anyway, that's why I love the price of Bitcoin right now, because I'm like, wow, we have mismarketed this at the most extreme level possible, and then made it extremely difficult for someone to even understand it. And we're still priced at $89,000. I think it's like, wow.
But you
Imagine,
think that it's
imagine a
gotten
good
better.
marketing program.
You think it's gotten better? The marketing's gotten better or worse?
I think it's getting worse, actually. But it's but I don't think it matters because it's clear to me the Bitcoin industry is too small for itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like every company I've ever been a part of that was going through 30 people to 300 to 3,000, at some point between 30 and 300, we had to make the ego decision to change. We could no longer behave the way we were when we had 30 people and $2 million of revenue. We could not behave the same way when we were at 200 million revenue and we're dealing with the best companies in the world. You're doing deals we're just maturing here. Okay. We're 17 years old. That says everything. Bitcoin 17 years old. It's behaving like it, or at least the people around Bitcoin are behaving like they're 17. I think we should end right there, dude. I think that says it perfect.
Almost an adult.
Fred is 17 years old and needs to deal with his mommy issues. I think that solves all the Bitcoin problems.
We should bring Fred on sometime.
He's welcome. I like Fred. I think he's a smart guy.
Yeah. Well, he was making fun of our daddy issues episode.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll make another topic like that.
Man. Surprise. Yeah. Point the finger and you know what's happened. Hey, listen, sister, good to see you. Love you a lot. Hope to see you in the right part of Florida.
Yes.
You evil witch. You're in Miami.
I know. Well, I'm going to be back. So maybe next month. And you have your birthday coming up. So
I need to find somebody to run that for me.
I'm doing a party.
21st of March, dude. That's going to be awesome. Okay. We need 500 ballers here. And by the way, not all balls. I'd like some women here. Okay.
Yeah, I know. We know you like the girls. 500
people party for the $100,000 party. I think I'm the only one that successfully did a $100,000 party. And it kept the 100 grand, but we need at least, what do you think? 300 women for 500 people?
300 women and 200 men?
That's the right. That's
200
really rich motherfuckers, okay, with stacks of Bitcoin and 300 women. Do you like that, Dana, or should we?
Yeah, I think that's a good.
So I like Dana, guys.
That's a good ratio.
Who doesn't love Dana, huh?
I know.
That's the right response.
Yeah, that's the right answer. Well, I can't wait. It's going to be fun. And we love all you guys too. See you next week.